Of the punishment of cowardice. I once heard a prince, a very great captain, maintain that a soldier could not be condemned to death for faint-heartedness. He had just been told the story at table of the trial of the Signor de Vervins, who was condemned to death for having surrendered Boulogne. In truth, it is right to make a great distinction between the faults that come from our weakness and those that come from our malice. For in the latter we have tensed ourselves deliberately against the rules of reason that nature has imprinted in us, and in the former it seems that we can call on this same nature as our warrantor for having left us in such imperfection and weakness. Thus many people have thought that we could not be blamed except for what we do against our conscience, and on this rule is partly based the opinion of those who condemn capital punishment for heretics and unbelievers, and the belief that an advocate or judge cannot be held responsible for having failed in his charge because of ignorance. But as for cowardice, it is certain that the commonest way to chastise is by shame and ignominy. And they say that this rule was first put into practice by the legislator Charondas, and that before his time the laws of Greece punished by death those who had fled from a battle, whereas he ordained merely that they should be placed in the public square for 3 days dressed in women's clothes, hoping still to be able to use them after having brought back their courage by this shame. Rather bring the blood to a man's cheeks than shed it. It seems also that in ancient times the Roman laws condemned to death those who had fled, for Ammianus Marcellinus relates that Emperor Julian condemned 10 of his soldiers who had turned their backs in charge against the Parthians to be degraded and afterward to suffer death, according, he says, to the ancient laws. Elsewhere, however, for a similar fault he condemns others merely to stay among the prisoners under the baggage ensign. The harsh sentences passed by the Roman people on the soldiers who had escaped from Cannae and on those who accompanied Cn. Fulvus to his defeat in that same war did not go so far as death. Yet it is to be feared that shame may make them desperate and not merely cold but enemies. In our father's time, the Signor de Frangat, formerly lieutenant of Marshal de Chastillon's company, having been made governor of Fuenterrabia by the Marshal de Chabannes in place of Monsieur du Lude, and having surrendered the place to the Spaniards, was condemned to be deprived of his nobility, and both he and his posterity were declared commoners, taxable, and unfit to bear arms. This rough sentence was executed at Lyons. Later, all the noblemen who were in Guise when the Count of Nassau entered it suffered the same punishment, and still others since. At all events, if there should be such gross and apparent ignorance or cowardice as to surpass all ordinary examples, it would be right to take it as sufficient proof of wickedness and malice, and to punish it as such.